This webinar is brought to you by TTS and bankwebinars.com, your one-stop provider for all your financial institution training needs.
Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Jared Cummings from TTS and bankwebinars.com, and I'll be your host for today's webinar titled Business Development for All Responsible Parties. And now I'd like to introduce our speaker today, Honey Shelton. Honey brings the best of both worlds to her speaking and training engagements. She has 30 plus years of experience as a training and quality improvement consultant for banks and banking associations across the country. Welcome, Honey.
Thank you, Jared. Hi, everybody. Glad to be here. Glad to have this chance to talk about a topic that certainly matters greatly to your financial institution. And I know that many of you that are on this call are either charged with organizing, training, encouraging, managing, leading business development, and many of you have the responsibility to execute on it. So I'm going to try to keep all of you in mind as I kind of do a broad brush about the who, what, where, when, why, and how, and see if I can help you take it up a notch or two. Jared gave me a great introduction there, and I appreciate it. You know, what I have in common with you is that I am a former banker. Today I spend a lot of time training trainers. I do a lot of coaching with people like you that work in a bank and are eager to find better ideas, good solutions, ways to self-reflect on what to do and what not to do. What I think is this: I think that every bank is in the business of attaining new customers and growing that relationship as well as the bank's balance sheet. But what I want to talk about today really is about getting on purpose about it. Sometimes I get a chance to work with a company and the CEO, for example, is frustrated because they feel like people aren't making enough business development calls, or I might be working with retail and they feel like that the branch or the call center or both are not taking advantage of the opportunity when a customer calls or comes in. So I know that we want it to happen. But one thing that you might write down and just stay mindful of as I talk to you today is, well, how do you get on purpose about it though? Because it's way more than a philosophy. You know, there's some important practices and factors that come into play. And so I like this slide. I think it gives us, you and I both, some common ground to start from. Someone needs to have the vision. You know, what is the vision for your company and how many people know it? I hope everybody knows it. What are we trying to become? What do we want to see happen? It's probably on your website. It might not be, but it ought to be. And then a strategic plan should be spelling out goals, measurable goals. And that can be everything from how you're going to expand your footprint to how you're going to grow loans and deposits and various lines of income. But I want you to kind of pay attention with me today about the importance of planning and taking action. So, you know, I'm a big fan of accountability about effort and results, because I can't coach a salesperson on what to do different if the salesperson can't convey to me what they're doing now. And I know that even the term salesperson is not embraced readily in the banking world, but it needs to be, for the same reason that people who loan money to people like me who are building a business, the bank is intensely interested in what is your plan to get where you're trying to go and where is that? You know, so you can just kind of see that stair step, excuse me, on the way to success. And it's only fair that we talk about the culture. The culture of your company is about the way we do things here. You might write that down. The way we do things here. And so you are not typically going to hire people who have a very strong experience and expertise in sales. So the culture has to begin to set the pace from onboarding all the way through training, coaching, evaluating, all those pieces to set the tone, especially for the customer facing people that have responsibility for growth. So to me, a sales and service culture in a bank, everybody wins. The community wins, the stockholder wins, the leadership wins, the customer wins, and all the doers, all the people that I'm going to be talking to today about what they can do. The effort for growth, the effort for a sales and service culture requires you have a champion. And that champion, is going to come out of the C-suite more than not. But this is someone who can invigorate people about, let me tell you who we are, and let me tell you where we're going. And you are lucky to be on the train. And if there's anything that gets in your way of doing your part to fulfill our mission, I'm your person. I want to know what gets in the way so that obstacles can get out of the way. One thing, let me tell you, one of the ways to tell whether or not you have a pretty decent sales and service culture is people responsible for business development they're kind of chronic about making demands. They're saying things like, we need a better treasury management product. We need flat screen TVs in the branch where we could show people what we're talking about when we discuss remote deposit or we discuss bill pay and all these kind of things. So that's the interesting thing that oftentimes it tells me when I say, well, what is the sales force, if you will, what are they saying they need? And they say, well, it's, they just can't get out. They can't, they don't have enough traffic. They've already asked everybody they know, to do business with us. But go-getters, people who really want to innovate and make things happen are saying, I need this, I need this, I need that, because I'm going to get traction here. I want to make things happen. So I strongly recommend that you create a coalition of people who are expected to be involved with business development. That if you're expecting things to be different in the branch or over the phone or with your lenders or brokerage or whatever, if you're expecting them to take the effort, don't forget that word, the effort to drum up more prospects and expand existing relationships, then they need to be a part. You need to have good representation from all the doers, the people you're expecting to do things. You need representation from them to say, how can we make this happen? When I teach at lending schools, one of the things I say to lenders is if you didn't take a new accounts person to lunch 8 times last year, you're missing out. You've got to build a relationship with people who are saying things like, so Mr. Elliott, what brought you to our bank today? Well, I work over at the ABC factory, and when I got my job, they said this is where they bank, and they suggested I come. Oh, awesome, wonderful. Well, tell me about you, and is this a new move to town? You hope you have people in new accounts that know how to create a conversation. And in the conversation, Mr. Elliott tells new accounts, yes, my wife is the CFO over at National General Insurance Company. Bingo. Because you have to, all of us responsible for business development, we need hunters. We want people hunting for us and teaching new accounts. if you are opening an account and you find out the new customer or a person in their family is a person of influence, I need to know that as soon as possible. So those are the kind of techniques I'm going to be weaving in here. But definitely the CFO is interested in what's going to happen with growth, and the CEO, and all these people are interested. But I want to see you create a coalition of business development people in the company. Not all of them, just good representation. You might rotate people on and off of this group, that they come together and share ideas about what they need to do that will generate what they need to be considered successful. So those are the kind of strategies that go along with a really strong vision. Some businesses I work with, everybody in the company knows, we're trying to grow this 6%. We're trying to do this. We're trying to do that. And once we have the vision, then we have to come up with the strategy. How will we do that? So those stair steps we looked at earlier, remember, we got to get good at planning, and then we got to get good at taking action. And with financial institutions, one thing I stress is we have to begin to look for a way to teach the action that needs to be taken, coach the action that needs to be taken and how well it's working or not. But the execution is what has to change. The doing is what has to change if we're really going to get good at business development. Of course, this vision and how the culture is going to pull people together to fire up some enthusiasm, some long-term planning, some short-term, what can we do now? In the sales world, in financial institutions, more often than not, we can only really close stuff in 3 quarters, the first, the second, and the third. We might want to put more focus on what do we need to be doing in the fourth quarter to be sure that the first, second, and third quarter of the next year is well done. Because it's very hard when we're chasing significant business like $1 million clients, things like that. It's very difficult to move it quickly. So the term called a pipeline becomes very indicative of the effort that we're putting in today. And those of you that are trained in this, you're nodding your head yes. But if you're new to being exposed to it, what you do today, who you call to make an appointment, who you go see, what steps you take if you work in a lobby or over the phone, the steps you take today, if you track all that, you'll begin to see how long it takes from a suggestion to a sales conversation to an appointment to a proposal to closing a deal. So modeling, all of you that lead these areas of influence in the company that are responsible for business development, how you model this, the action that you take, how you insist that your teams shadow one another and really learn not only the business, but if you have some rainmakers, what do they do that's different than people who are not building business? Culture can thrive. You get more of what you got. So if what you got isn't getting you what you want, you have to stage what I call an intervention in your culture and become very focused on what are we doing that's working and what do we need to do more of and less of. Because since we don't pay people on commission typically, we don't advertise for salespeople typically, we've got to take our bankers and teach them how to be better at business development, and that the culture is about serving That's what we're out to do. We're going to serve people in a way we never have before. The traps that can come with reestablishing or initiating a sales and service culture is that you can already see, if you look around, some people are pretty complacent. They have a lot of routine. They don't want to change that routine. And so somebody's got to stir that up so that the culture doesn't stall, or that it's not one of a lot of talk and no action. That coalition that I mentioned a minute ago, when we don't have a group of doers, people that actually do the work that we're after, when they're not involved in the plan for how we're going to do it, they won't take much ownership of it. So it's going to stall. It won't be powerful. It'll be in a stall. The power of the vision, the champion conveying, let me tell you what's fantastic about working here, what is extraordinary about banking here, and begin to legitimize that it shows up on your website, it shows up in every meeting, that it's to the positive and it's real, and that we begin to solicit customer testimony so that people stay fired up about what we can do, how we can do it. So we want people talking about the culture through the vision of our leader. We want to be sure that obstacles, as I mentioned earlier, if people are running into obstacles, that we hear about it. How long does it take to open a new account? What are people telling those of us that are out there prospecting and trying to close business? And what is the branch saying about the challenges they face with cross-selling? How can we best do that? Now I'm going to deviate here for a minute. I'm going to show you something that I think you'll find interesting. About 5 years ago, our office, we moved and we began to go to a different branch of the bank where we bank. I pull up to the commercial window in the drive-through one day, and there's Sarah, my teller. She said, "Oh, Miss Shelton, how are you?" I said, "I'm doing great." She said, "I'm going to take care of this for you, but I want you to meet Luke James." Luke is someone who helps small businesses understand how to manage their money and how to, if they don't have a 401k, for example, how they could have one. So while I go work up your deposit, Luke, meet Miss Shelton. Miss Shelton, this is Luke. Now this guy is leaning over in the commercial window. He asked me, "Tell me about interaction training. When would be a good time for me to come by? I'd just like to get to know you better, to be sure that if there's any way we can help interaction training be more successful, we'd like to do that." And I met with him, and we did alter some things we were doing based on my relationship with him. Still have a good relationship with him. So when people say, "Well, let me tell you the obstacle we have, we're in the drive-through and we can't do that," or when someone in brokerage says, "Well, I can't get the bankers to connect with us so we can meet their people," that company obviously has a very strong vision and a coalition, and I'll bet you a branch manager made that suggestion. "You come to our location, we'll put you back. We get a lot of traffic at the commercial window, and we're going to make some introductions." So getting creative about how we're going to get on purpose about business development means we're going to do some things that we haven't done before, and we're going to have to celebrate short-term wins. We're going to have to begin to celebrate action and effort that people begin to change their behavior. I always find it funny, when people tell me, "Oh my God, there's no more business to be had." And I'll say, "Well, I want to print out," and I'll ask for a certain profile of checking account customers that kind of look like this. And I'll sit down with somebody and I'll say, "Well, just, highlight every one of those that you've talked to in the last year." On the commercial side, same thing, that you highlight them if you know them. You know their business, what their annual sales are, how many people they hire, what their long-term vision is for their business. And so you know and I know that in the beginning of changing people's behavior, we've got to begin to celebrate the dig. How are you going to dig different? What are you going to do different? And let's see what begins to happen. It's like working out. Business development is like working out. If you go do a workout this morning and expect tomorrow to see a big change in your body, it isn't going to happen. But if you do it every day, you create what's called a chain. And the chain begins to make things different. So we're going to have to celebrate and recognize some change. Likewise, we can't declare a victory too early because this is forever. Loans are paying off, we got to replace them. Deposits run off, we've got to have more coming in. I got a phone call last week from my bank. I do not do merchant services with them. The guy said, Ms. Shelton, I want to tell you what our offer is. $500 if you'll switch your merchant services to us. We're going to give you $500, and we guarantee you that we're going to beat the rate you pay right now. And of course, I have an appointment with him. Even at that, I'm not as enthused about it as you might think. But I love that my bank, somehow they got together and said, this would be cheaper than a billboard. If we target customers of ours that we can see their credit card transactions, and they're going through a third party, they're not coming through us. So you got to anchor these changes as they begin to come to pass. None of this is easy, but it is exciting. It can make a difference. And mindset is everything. People who think they can't, people who don't want to do it, people who don't want to do business development will find 50 reasons why they can't. So the leadership of the branches, the call center, the lenders, and other lines of business, the leadership says, we're going to change. I want to hear from you what we can do, but not doing action to grow existing relationships and securing them, at the same time building up a pipeline full of prospective deals. That can't happen anymore. So this isn't a Wells Fargo push no matter what. It's changing the culture to say, we are in the business to grow. That's what we're trying to do. And we're going to serve well and sell right. That's the approach I want to see you take. Trust is everything. When the emphasis begins to be on changing the culture and growing new business, one thing that's only fair that your staff becomes suspicious of is this is temporary. I'm sure this is temporary. It's a fad. Somebody listened to a webinar, went to a convention, heard this, heard another competitor did this, so we're going to try it. And then, it'll be board meeting day and we'll change our focus, and then we'll have examiners and we'll change our focus. I want you to plan well and begin to ask yourself, what can we do that will build muscle? Same kind of thing as a workout. This is my last don't, not, and all that, but you have to have a process. Everything that runs efficient in a bank has a great process. So when you build your plan to have a sales and service culture, how will we create a process that encourages accountability, follow-up, action, and results? How do we come together and say, okay, the bank has said we're going to do these things that are measurable in growth. What will be our part if I'm from the branch or the call center or other lines of business or treasury management or commercial lending? What will be our part? What will we do different? Here's some things I think that kind of give you a little bit of a step into a process. So let's see if this makes it more process oriented, I think is the word I'm after. So of course there's things we've got to initiate. We've got a lot of discovery we've got to do if we really want to be a big contender on the business development side. A demonstration, asking for business, that that is not the first thing we do. And sometimes CEOs and we have quite a discussion about that. They'll say, I just want them to ask for the business. And I say, well, I don't. I want you to plow the ground and plant the seeds, and then you'll be able to pluck business off. Every bit of business in your markets that you serve right now that you want, they already have a bank. Uprooting that is not easy. Expanding your relationship with your existing customer is the low-hanging fruit. We should be working that like crazy. And then where will we get our referrals from? And then how do we document this effort? So let's kind of walk through these. Initiate contact. Go where the prospects are. And, for me, that's not necessarily the Lions Club, the Optimist Club, the Chamber of Commerce. To me, the best prospects in the world are people who are a part of change early. Realtors, title companies, maybe accountants, maybe architects, leasing agents. These are people who know ahead of time. You want to get in as early as you can if you're someone charged with getting outside the company to generate business development. If you're a branch manager, then apartment managers, local realtors, these are people who you win their trust. You are engaging and friendly, and tell them how interested you are in knowing what they need to grow their business, to see if there's anything you can do that can complement what they're trying to do. There's something I call churn. If you can kind of imagine that, a whirlpool in water. And so you're going to begin to initiate a new way of reaching out to people. Marketing, though I haven't mentioned them much yet, plays such a big role in how they can complement what the business development teams need in order to get good exposure, introductions, drive traffic to the website, etc. The key to being an expert at business development is learning how to ask great questions. That's why being curious, you might write that down. Fostering curiosity makes for a great business development banker, because they don't know everything about anything. They just know who to reach out to get answers for things. They stay in tune with the world of business. They stay in tune with what's happening in their market so that they can create what I call expert conversations. When you can ask good questions, you can uncover needs or challenges people have so that you can, at the right time, offer solutions, suggestions, doing favors for people, serving people well. So you want to collaborate as a group. You want to ask even your best customers. Get a list of your customers whose success is so dependent on business development. Go interview them. Ask them, how do you develop new prospects? They'll share all that information with you. I'd love to meet with your strongest salespeople. I'd love to know the last 3 big deals you got. Where'd you get them? How'd you get them? So I want to pique your curiosity today, and I want you to learn to ask great questions. And when the time is right to ask for business, to make a presentation, to do a match, you're going to do it with enthusiasm, and you will have practiced One of the biggest walls of resistance you have at your company is that people are not well trained, they're not well rehearsed, but they are smart about how to not do business development because their confidence level is low. On your way down the path to get business, keep it simple and conversational. And the best conversationalists have learned they use their ears more than their mouth. Who are you? Tell me about you. What do you wish was different? Who's your biggest competitor? Um, what changes in the world do you see right now that you think would impact your business long term? People appreciate anyone who's interested in what they do. Then you can say when the time is right, and it's never on the first call, no matter what, it's never on the first call on someone, even if they're your existing customer, that you ask for the business. You come back after you've had a great interview or in the lobby, you've referred someone or said, Mr. Shelton, I want to introduce you to Joan Biaz. She is deals with companies just like yours all the time. I just think she'd be a good contact for you. See, that should be going on all the time, but it's not going to go on unless people see it, have practiced it, have been challenged and led and coached around it. With our existing customers, we're always going to find out how satisfied they are. Please don't wait on someone who comes to see you or that you go to see, that if you can swing it, and you should be able to, that you could say this, Mr. Jordan, by the way, I'm always conducting a satisfaction survey. On a scale of 1 to 5, how satisfied are you with how we take care of you? You need to know. If they say, oh my gosh, I'd say a 6. Your people are great. They do this, they do that. Well, I hope you'll tell the world that. I hope you'll tell people that. Because you know who I'm looking for? I'm looking for another customer just like you. So if you know someone who you think would like to brag about where they bank and who they bank with, I hope you won't hesitate. Anybody come to mind? That's the way we build it. You already know that when somebody calls you on the phone and says, Kathy Box with the Texas Bankers Association suggested I give you a call, that breaks open a door that you can't cold call your way through. The other thing when we think about a process is if you don't have a CRM, a client relationship management software, you'll have to come up with some other form of trackable data about effort and results. So the hardest part about a CRM for a bank is not buying one. It's getting people to use it. And that has to become a part of the culture. That when we touch a customer and it's of significance, they're complaining to us, they're asking for something, we're suggesting something, that we're able to log that information and that we begin to have a path of intelligence about where our growth is going to come from. What does my effort in asking for referrals, making suggestions, going out and calling on people in the call center, focusing a week at a time on a product, what did the effort net me? And the CRM has to replace the Post-it note around, oh, I'll be sure and tell Bob Wells you ask about him. So these are the things when we look at the whole swirl or churn of business development. If some of these pieces are missing, as you strategize, you may want to decide what you're going to do about it. Training and education. I've been told before when I've come to do sales training, they'll say, now listen, our team, they're not big on role play. And I always say something like this, well, I hope their doctor is. You learn by doing. Occasionally, you're going to hire a personality that is a business drum beater. It comes natural to them. It's not going to happen very often. So we're going to have to subscribe to the belief that knowledge and skill play a huge role in being effective at business development. You can always send your trainers to us. We'll train them so they can come back and train you. Your managers need to be trained to coach. And I think coaching is one of the most powerful pieces of effectiveness when we're talking about trying to change behavior. And that is what we're talking about here. Motivation, keeping people interested, accountable, helping them see that the potential outcome from their effort, what can happen, that they get to grow as an expert in the know-how and the how-to. They are going to have support from a leader. Today, it's not unusual for me to go into some companies just like yours, and I find a sales coach, I find a sales leader. These could even be two different roles, and their focus is on teaching this skill set and helping people work their book of business, their pipeline. I like to say this about business development. Now's a good time, since I see that word advice, I'm going to give you some. When I'm talking to you today about what you can do in terms of strategy for business development, remember this: only do what you have to do. If what you're doing is working, know what it is you're doing and increase it. If what you're doing isn't working, if action is not following big discussions about you should and we ought to, then we've got to change the behavior. Encouragement is really important. Taking people who are not as good at business development on calls with people who are really good, then debriefing after that call. In the lobby, having someone who's very good at introductions, conversation, building rapport, asking great questions, watching that, listening to that, and then debriefing afterwards. Then role playing it is where people who it doesn't come natural begin to see, oh, this is like counting money. This is like reading a balance sheet. If you know how and then you apply the how to, you are more efficient at it, you're better at it, you're more prepared for the unexpected, and you can roll with rejection, or the customer says, I'm not interested, I don't want that. Your culture would say, appreciate your feedback and the opportunity to serve you. Here's my card if anything ever changes. So we're certainly in this culture of business development swirl that we're trying to create here. We don't want to be pushy. We don't want to talk people into doing things they don't need or want to do. But we're leaving way too much on the table. If you have a strong competitor, you're going to feel it. You're going to see some things move out of your bank and you'll be like, oh my gosh. And rate can be a piece of this at times, and relationships get broken at times. That's why feeding the pipeline to replace anything we might lose is just so important. I'm a big fan of goals, but I'm even a bigger fan of habits. Taking a look at that. There's a book that I'm looking for it. I don't see it. I'll see it before we hang up. There it is. Atomic Habits. I think it's a great book. I think if you want to see different things happen for you or people you lead or train or influence, the author is James Clear. And he talks about it's the action you take that gets you to the goal. It's not making the goal that gets you there. And it's so true. So looking at a financial institution, I think it's important that we identify who the responsible parties are for business development, and that those units, the branch, the call center, insurance, maybe mortgage, lending, however you carve that out, how do we work together? How do we help each other be great at this? No doubt about it, the greatest responsibility is on the shoulders of the executive team. It sets the tone for the strategy. Remember, a lot of philosophy or too vague, it's not going to happen. Strict, rigid, no matter what, you'll have an embarrassing debacle. You'll have people gaming. You'll have people creating accounts that aren't real. So we're not looking to the extreme. What I'm trying to provoke your thinking about is we can do more with effort. And as we perfect our effort, we're not any different than an NBA team or an NFL team. We need to know our position. We need to know what the game is about, what the rules are. We need to understand what our part is. And getting good at our part of business development, depending upon your position, is where it's at. A great resource for all of us, of course, is the board of directors. Oftentimes I see that as kind of an understood, but when you don't get on purpose about it, your directors may not be actively helping you generate leads. Sitting down with a director, many times I've done this. I've said, here is my list of suspects and prospects and customers I think are potential, have a lot of potential for growth. Who do you know? How could you help me? Do you know a name? Could we go to lunch together? So looking for resources, I think, and it seems obvious, but just don't overlook the board for how they can be resourceful. Marketing, the goal here is that they provide us with great data about where we are trying to prospect. They can provide us with information if they subscribe to something like Hoover's or other sources that could tell us a lot about any prospect that we have. What's the marketing plan for the year? Are we blogging? Are we considering having events that would draw people to our location? Could we do a cybersecurity seminar? Can we do fraud prevention for merchants? Probate law for aging people in our market. What are we doing that brings people to us? And what is my job as a business development team member to try to make the most of that event? So I don't want to overlook how marketing being creative, creating collateral pieces, brochures or folders or things that we can use, maybe even a short PowerPoint on how we can explain who we are and what we do. Not sure how you want to tap into them, but don't leave them out. Every branch to me should have a branch business plan. The team at that branch is very aware of what where the branch is and what the branch wants to do in terms of being value-based to create very positive customer experiences, very focused on the future, as well as what are my responsibilities for trying to grow that. I've mentioned the call center so many times. More and more, the customer's biggest impression of us comes from our website, because if they can resolve anything using their phone or a connection to the internet, that's their preference. We're seeing that by leaps and bounds. But when they call or when they come in, impression management does fall on the responsibility of people who answer the phone and people who greet our customers as they come for service. The lender, what can I say? My gosh, look at the responsibility the lender has today to build business, to find core deposits, to generate a profit for the business. So when we look at our lenders, are we sure they have good analytical skills, good interpersonal skills, emotional IQ, that they know how to meet people and engage and be a good listener? Uh, there's no question the power that a lender can have by being adding their expertise of being a business development or a business builder. So I'd have every one of my lenders self-evaluate. How comfortable are you? What do you think you need to know more of? What do you do that you think works really well to grow business? What obstacles are getting in your way? Because the best way that a sales and service culture thrives is when people who represent the culture are very engaged in how that's going to happen. So can't stress enough the role that the lender plays. You have all these different lines of business. Probably nothing is becoming more critical to the growth of commercial deposits and loans than treasury management. Are your treasury management teams, are they striving for or have already accomplished certification? Have they been given good communication skill training? How do they engage with the customer? Um, what could they do that people who participate or need treasury management, what could we do? What event could we do that would bring people to our bank to learn more about that? And training's popped up here several times, but the word you might want to write down is just competency. What competencies, when we talk about business development, are you really expecting people to be able to do? Some ideas I've already given you is, interviewing customers whose livelihood depends upon sales, business development. What do they do? How do they train people? What's their master plan for growth? So that we can begin to replicate that. The trap that's set for all of us who work in a bank is there's lots of tasks that you do, and the task can get in the way of business development activity that has to happen. And I love that every bank I've ever dealt with wants to be a good citizen and do good things in the community. I like that. But don't confuse the two. You're going to get brand awareness when you are out in the community doing things, and I like that. But remember, in addition to that, we've got to get on purpose about actions we're going to take that create a great pipeline where we are actively pursuing and knowing every mover and shaker we can in our market. If they're not our customer, why wouldn't they be our prospect? And there are prospects that are not a good match for you, but those questions have to be addressed about how are we going to go. So I've come up with some steps here that I think can complement what I'm encouraging you to do today. Know and exceed what is expected. I'm talking to you if you're the lender, if you work in the branch, if you're a branch manager, if you're the call center person, if you are involved in treasury management. Be sure you know what's expected so you can build a plan to exceed expectations. If expectations are unrealistic, they will not be met. They will not be met. And if my job is to try to build a business in my role with the company, and I already know there's no way that goal can be met, it can backfire in a big way. So expectations need to be a stretch, but they need to be real. As you lead yourself and others about business development, watch for resistance, watch for detours, manage the impression, polish the brand, sharpen product knowledge. You don't need to be an expert on an SBA loan to talk about one, but you better know who the expert is. And if you've got daycare centers that are great candidates for SBA or something like that, then you're going to have to create a tunnel of expertise about that so you can be a real serious competitor. Know the market. Know it as early as possible. A sold sign with a picture of a building on the corner of what's coming, you've already missed that deal. It's too late. The financing's already been secured. So how can you become a market expert and know it really early? What is going on? Who owns this land? I always say to lenders, I want you to know from the dirt up, who owns the dirt, who's building on it, what are they going to do with it, because we got to get there early. Then, who's an ideal target for you? What does a good customer look like? Just like we're going to teach that in the branch for how to profile someone my age. I'm very interested in saving money and my retirement. I'm very interested in it. It's age appropriate. If my grandchildren come in there, that's not going to be the same area of emphasis. So learning how to identify targets, setting goals, building the plan, executing and reporting on the plan, reporting on effort. The results are going to be easier to calculate. But the way you win a basketball game is in how you ran the drills, what your strategy was, how well thought out it was ahead of time. So we want to do that. And to have this kind of culture can take 2 to 3 years to get it in secure, but you can never leave it alone. It's like growing a beautiful garden. It takes lots of effort. Best practices for what to do if you schedule an appointment for someone to come in and meet with you, or you schedule an appointment to go out and meet with someone. If you don't even have appointments and you work a building, how can you get past the gatekeeper? Document, follow up. That's the name of the game. So when we talk about, what we expect, these are great questions people have every right to ask. If I have the best year this year working here, what would you, if you're my manager, what would you say I would have accomplished? If in next year, the end of next year, I had the best year I've ever had working here, according to you, how would you know that? How can I increase my value? And let me tell you, having good business development skills is something every bank today is craving that they can have in other people. What's the company's strategic plan? What's my role in it? How was my last performance evaluation? And if business development is a part of my job, did we talk about that when my performance was evaluated? Do we talk about that in coaching sessions that I have with my leaders 6, 7, 8 times a year? And where's business development in my job description? So these are just some things, again, to stir up your thinking about, because you and I can look at the very same thing and see something very different. So be sure that perception is checked often, that reality stays in focus, and that if we need to adjust the plan, we will, but the effort needs to become habitual. It needs to be measured so that we can get where we want to go. Where there's resistance and detours, investigate it, see what can be done about it, help people realize that complaining or excusing or dodging usually doesn't get us anywhere. Understanding more on the motivation side when we talk about sales is such an important thing. Everybody's motivated. And I can't motivate you on this webinar today to do anything, but I can stir up your thinking, because there's 2 things you're in charge of: how you think and how you act. So when we create an environment that allows people to generate their success, their pictures of what it means to be successful, then we begin to see that we get a different a swirl or churn going in the culture. That the exception in 3 years should be that people are not effective in business development versus it's the exception. It's rare. So we don't hire. You're not going to go hire salespeople. I'm not even suggesting it. I'm suggesting that you create a culture that is focused on growth and service, and that you teach people what they need to do to help the culture thrive. Some of it's a discipline, some of it's a skill, some of it's knowledge. But more than anything, it has to do with how they think about it and what they do with it. We're all a blend of different behavioral tendencies, and we all see people differently, see situations differently. So our differences aren't bad. They're just different. That's what they are. I would suggest if you're trying to build a strong business plan around growth, that you do investigate in emotional intelligence training. It helps build grit in people. It helps build people skills, and it doesn't replace what you need to know to do your job. It complements how you get people to respond to you. There's a lot of doubting Thomases in the world, and there ought to be. They challenge systems and processes and so forth, but there's a principle which is a bar against all information, which is proof against all arguments, and cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. And it's the principle of contempt before investigation. So I would really encourage you to, as you investigate how you can make business development a more positive and thriving thing, that you tell people to try the best they can to weed out their prejudice against what it means to be on purpose about expanding how many people do business with us and how much business those people do with us. Here's the trap. It's the biggest one. It's a mysterious and strong force that keeps people from getting things done. Procrastination creates lots of stress, a lot of energy to stay stuck. So that's, again, where leadership's going to come into play. A well thought out plan that includes these components that I've been persuading you to consider. That when that plan is well thought out, and accountability, and I only mean that in the most positive way, that accountability is just like coming to work. Everybody's expected to. Then our culture will be one of where we serve each other, our community, and our customers, and we are growth focused. What can we do for you that will be good for you, that fits right in to our plan? You will have holdouts when you try to really upstart a sales and service culture, because people, they just don't believe it's real. They believe it won't take much for us to jump the track. So don't put off starting forever, but do watch out for starting without a well thought out plan. Are you better at excuses or actions? Because that's what we want. Now I'm going to give you some advice that comes from Warren Buffett. I love this. He said this: make a list of 20 goals that matter to you. Pick the 5 highest priority goals to you. This is a great practice for people when they're thinking in the business development realm. And he says, the other 15 goals distract you. Ignore them. Give them no fuel. And you'll begin to see that these habits that you develop to get where you're trying to go with a goal makes such a big difference. It's sort of that test of, do your task match up with your goals? Great question to ask yourself. because what you like to do, you prefer to do. You make room for it. And what you don't like to do, you will do your best to never get done. So we do a weekly report at our office where, every Friday afternoon or Thursday, if you're not going to be there on Friday, you prepare a report that says, this is what I got done this week. These are obstacles and hurdles or detours I ran into. And then these are my plans for the next week. And when I take that plan or my weekly report and I lay it against my personal strategic plan for this year, and I see that I'm busy. I'm a very busy person. I'm doing a lot of tasks, but they don't relate to the action needed to get to my goal. That's why I'm trying to provoke you today to say, what habits do you need to put in play that can get you where you need to go? Because mastery follows consistency. Anybody who is on a wellness plan and believes in it will say, here's all the tasks I do every day to ensure that I'm working my wellness plan. We want to do the same thing here when we talk about business development. So managing the impression and polishing the brand of who are we and what do we stand for. Branding gets a lot of buzz these days with your company, and I see some banks just recently have, rebranded and either a new name, new logo, or both. But you have a brand as a person. And so you want to think about brand protection for both the company as well as yourself, because impression management has so much to do with how you look and how you feel, and they feed each other. So dress the part that you want to play from the top of your head to the sole of your shoe. Your workspace, if your workspace is really cluttered, you'll feel like you can't get anything done. I have a box. I've had it couldn't tell you how long. It's a banker's box. And at the end of the day, I take all this stuff that's already out today. I'm working on different things. I have piles. I'm a pilot. I pilot here and there and everywhere. But at the end of the day, I scoop that up and drop it in the box. And when I walk in the next day, it's like, let's go, rev it up. Likewise, if you're coming to meet me at my office, that's what that box is for. I'm scooping it up and getting all of that out of the way. So ask yourself, how do I show up? What's my reputation at the bank where I work, with the people I work with? What's my reputation in my community? Is the adjective helpful and positive? Are these two adjectives people associate with me? If it is, your on-purpose plan for business development is going to be very successful. Those are two things that people who grow relationships, that's what they're interested in. How can I help you? And it's like the boomerang. It all comes back. What's your story? That's different than the pitch about your company. Who are you? What do you do? Where do you do it? How do you share it? You never have to brag on yourself. That's why you want testimonies on LinkedIn and where people give you endorsement. The best endorsements won't come from you about you. They'll come from other people. Share your story, but first ask other people what their story is. Tell me about you. Tell me how you got started in this business. Tell me what you like about what you do. What do you wish you could change? People are hungry for someone who will listen to them. And then when the invitation is extended or it's appropriate, let them know who you are. Be sure you have your company story down, that you've prepared it, you have materials, you're well rehearsed. Business cards absolutely critical. Every person in your company that is expected to try to get referrals and to suggest people do business with you need their own business card. Know your pitch about the company. Check out your website. You can pitch all day long, but after you leave or before you came, I went on your website to see what your company's about. I hope your website is all about how your company's going to help somebody like me who's looking for you. Know what your clients say about you. Every time somebody pays a compliment or tells you a story, say, I would love to share that story. Can I share that story? And when you're out about or in the branch talking to someone, you can say, you know what this reminds me of? I was at Elliott Brothers Landscaping last week, and do you know those guys? Do you know their story of how they came here and what they did? And I'm proud to say that they really feel like we helped them get where they were trying to go. You always want to have somebody else state the benefit of doing business with you. Do know your products, but you don't have to be a complete expert. You can always get somebody on the phone. You can say, that is the best question. Let me see if I can get Martha on the phone because she deals with this every day. It's A-okay with me if you're drumming that business and you don't know everything. But you need to know who knows everything and sharpen your product knowledge. Ask customers, how do you like that? Do you use Yellowhammer? Do you use Positive Pay? How do you like that? How does that work for you? Because on the business development side, we need to be relatable about our products. We talked about being a market expert from the dirt up. Who owns the land? What's sitting on the land? Who owns what's sitting on the land? How's that? What's sitting on the land going to be used? Who steers people? A new medical building is has been announced. It's going to be 3 years before people are moving in. How soon do you think people are going to lease or buy space in there? So you want to be as far ahead as you can get about things. What's the market like? Who's the competition? And I like this word. It's called hustle. You know exactly what I mean. Think back when you were in high school and they said, you got 10 minutes to get to the other class from one room to the other. And you say, oh, it's clear across the campus. And somebody said, well, you're going to have to hustle. How did I get the best relationships I have? If I was coaching you and you were in business development, had those responsibilities, I'd say, I want you to tell me, pick out 25 of your best customers. And we're going to work on some of those every time we coach. Where did you get them? How did you get them? How did you keep them? How often do you touch them? Because we're going to begin to duplicate what we do well. We're going to know what we do that we do well. Here's the deal when we talk about financial institutions. Everybody's in the hunt, but not everyone is hunting. I want you to be a good hunter. Whoops. I want you to be a really good hunter. I want you to learn how to stay ahead of other people. Know your targets. Look at some of your customers. Ask yourself, do we seem to do better with certain types of industries like manufacturing or service, or are we a great generalist? Where are you going to concentrate? Are you going to look at geography, types of customers, circles of influence? I hope you do all of that. On our website, interaction-training.com, we have some tools on there for you. They're free for the taking. Go in there, dig around, find some. But if you worked for me, if we worked at the same company and you reported to me or I was responsible for helping you in business development, I would want this customer care log within an arm's reach when you're sitting at your desk. Knowing what you need to do to keep what you have, grow what you have, at the same time while we're trying to foster a list called prospects. Personally, look at what your goals are going to be so that you can focus on the habits that need to happen. And those goals are going to have something to do with new relationships, your existing customers. When I started out in banking, the name of the game was location. You got a great corner, you were going to grow. It was sort of like Field of Dreams. Build it, here they come. That story is over. It's just not the same anymore. The world is our customers' bank. They can get online. American Express yesterday, I get a deal in the mail that I can have a personal savings account, 2.1%, and so on and so forth. They don't have there's no branch in my market. There doesn't have to be. So I want to encourage you to, think about, how can I get more than what I'm entitled to because I'm affiliated with Southside Bank, or I'm affiliated with First National Bank. I work here. What about loans? Is that your thing? Are you responsible for that? What about deposits? What's your part when it comes to fee income? Waive fewer, look for opportunities to generate more income that way. So this is the mindset, depending upon your position in a bank. This is the mindset of people who are after being on purpose about business development. Be sure the goal matches up with expectations. Remember what I told you, quarter 1, 2, and 3, boom, 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 on trying to close business and generate things in the pipeline. But if you're way behind and it is early September, October, November, December, it'll take something very remarkable to happen to get caught up. So we got to get that momentum going in our direction. Evaluate where you are, monitor every week, report your effort and your results. And then evaluate, how'd my week go? How could I do it different? How could I do it better? How vulnerable is the business you have now? Be sure you stay in touch with that. I think you'll like that about that top 25 list. What's your strategy for getting new business? Where can you expand where you are now? So it is exploratory surgery in my mind when we think about business development. The role of the leader, the branch manager, the head of commercial lending, the head of treasury management, these different pockets, merchant services. What's your mindset? Where's your focus? Who can help you? Because you have a lot of people in that are talking to customers on the phone or seeing them in person who can help you build your business. Never forget how procrastination is chasing you all the way around your desk. You plan and book what you're going to do next week on Thursday and Friday, and you call on, phone people up, touch them, or go see them Tuesday and Wednesday. Book every business development effort you can on Tuesday and Wednesday so that if it cancels, you can still get it in that week. You got to have these tools. You have to have a calendar, one only, that says when you're going to meet with people. A to-do list, what you're going to do to be able to set up more meetings. And your contacts are invaluable to you. So when you go places and you already know to do this, you get a business card, you write on the back how you met them, you bring it back, and you're going to take some kind of action. You're either going to load it into your prospect list, send them a thank you card, call them up, send them an email. You're going to do something. You got to create more churn so that you can be helpful, so you can serve your market and you will grow business beyond belief. So I want you to build your plan. I want you to execute on your plan. Here's another form I really like. I think you can just email me for this. This is one that I use, kind of thinking about my week ahead. The best thing I can tell you about getting good at business development is the better you plan, the less you'll have to do. But what you do will have more meaning. The better you plan, the less you'll have to do. But what you do will have more meaning. So use best practices. Be sure that if you lead other people and you're trying to generate referrals and cross-selling in the branch, you tell them, I want to know how often you have a business development conversation. I can track business we close, but I can't track your effort. I want you to track it too, because that's where some of our master salespeople can help. That's where I could help, so that your effort becomes smarter and smarter and more effective. Without structure, without a plan, without all this insurance, that's really what I tried to do today, was to talk you into putting an insurance policy around your growth by investing in leadership training, product knowledge, impression management, a planned approach, a CRM, all of this. Without structure, you have to rely on luck. You'll say, I'm so lucky, I just got this deal. I'm so lucky. Well, most luck is where hard work and opportunity came together. Accountability, you want to be accountable to yourself, to the company, to the community, and to your customer. I hope you have a tablet, not an electronic one. Mine is a letter size legal pad. I don't shower with it. I almost do everything else. If somebody calls me, I pick up my pen. If I go to a meeting, I walk in with this. That's where I take my notes. I date it. I give it a title. When I come back, I scan it. And I put it into the folder where it belongs. I got to have paper, because I'm busy like you are. My intentions are the best, but once my follow-up got better, so did my skills at business development. So you got to kind of step out of that comfort zone. Not everybody will buy into getting on purpose about business development. It isn't everybody's cup of tea. Your sales and service culture has to be the prevailing piece of this. How can I help you? That needs to be the internal theme. How can I help you? I was at an outstanding hotel in Atlanta, and I don't say outstanding and hotel in the same sentence very often. And I interviewed the GM in front of 350 people. And I said, what's going on here? And he said, for 3 years, all of us say to each other all the time, how can I help you? What can I do to help you? And he said, let me tell you, if you saw my numbers about what guests say that stay here, about how we're making money here, you'd see that a culture of being helpful and willing to serve changes everything. I know it's true. You do too. Follow through, follow through, follow through. You have to be seen. You have to be heard. You have to be good at networking. And not everybody's going to be at the same pace around this, but you must solicit and deserve referrals. You earn referrals. You run into a customer at lunch or at church or on the golf course, you say to him, Ed, when's the last time you were at one of our locations? How'd we do? Oh, your people, those girls in the drive-through. So listen, is it all right with you if I quote you? I just love it when people tell me what a good job we do. Well, of course you can. And listen, if you know somebody that'd like to rave about the kind of helpfulness and service they get from their bank, I hope you'll have them call me. So brick and mortar is where the servicing gets done, but it's not where the deals get introduced. It's out and about. So be sure you're out and about is where it ought to be. Here's who's chasing you. Here's who's out to interfere with everything I'm suggesting. A bunch of tasks that, read James Clear's book. It'll help you with that. It'll help you with procrastination. Watch out. Start a dread list. What do you dread doing? Because we go into a stall when we dread something. See what you can do to reduce dread. And then, of course, as you build confidence, and overdone confidence is arrogance, it's cocky, it's not appealing to the masses. But if you have a plan and you're working your plan and you get to talk to colleagues who are doing the same thing, and you have a sales leader who's encouraging you, and you're learning and growing and celebrating your small wins so that we can have some victory parties, you're going to see a change in your confidence. Action is the foundational key to all success. Anthony Robbins, so true. What action is expected? What results are expected? Your best year yet for you, what does that look like? That's where we want to get our focus. I love the term grit. Angela, and I hope I'm going to say her last name right. I think it's Duckworth. I can't see her book from where I'm sitting. Wrote a book about grit. Please add that to your reading list, because you'll be very impressed about what her research shows us about the difference between the wannabe successful and the very successful, and it's grit. Low on it, the results won't get you what you were after. Okay, I'm going to tell you that there's all kinds of ways that you can, there's my there's my business card right there. There's how to get in the store. If you're on LinkedIn, I hope you link up with me. And when we're talking about business development today, you got to be on LinkedIn. It's your Rolodex. It isn't going to get you business, it's going to get you prospects, and that's the first step in getting business. So my intention was to talk about what difference on purpose business development strategies can make. I took a lot of things and put it in here. I hope you took notes. It's the best way to retain something in a webinar. And I'm going to pause and see if I have any questions. Jared's going to tell you how that will work. And if not, I'll do a wrap up.
Okay, I do have a few questions here. The first one says, can you give a good example of a time when you have seen a business anchor the changes?
I can. I think the best way you can anchor changes about actions, behavior, and results that you want to see different is definitely where it's well thought out, where all players that you expect to play on this field have created their plan. Granted that the guidelines, the goal for end result was handed to them, like a branch manager, grow deposits 3% this year. And you say to the branch manager, build a plan that you think will get you where you want to go. Hopefully the branch manager could also rebuke the goal if they felt it was impossible, that they needed to be convinced. You anchor change when you develop a plan and a process and it's monitored. Because it's dynamic, there's reasons it would need to change. But where I see business development changes not take root is where it's philosophy. There's a lot of talk about what we ought to do, we got to do, etc. But there's not a discipline that is taught about build your plan, be coached about the plan, and document your effort so that we can get smarter and smarter. One thing I love to say, and it fits so good in banking, if you can't track it, you can't manage it. And that is the truth about business development. The best salespeople in the world love if they have a process, and they like all these things I'm telling you, but they're usually very much a maverick. So they may need a different kind of support than what I typically see. But I think the way you anchor changes is you give people the tools and training and coaching they need to build and execute on a plan, and it's discussed and encouraged and reviewed, just like the balance sheet at the bank is every day. That we get our focus on the behavior, the actions that we need to be doing that get us the best result. But when it's philosophy, you can take off with a bang, and there's a lot of buzz, and then it dies down and nothing really changes. I hope that helped.
Okay. Do you have any good book suggestions for emotional intelligence development?
Yes, anything by Daniel Goldman. You're going to find wonderful articles, blogs. You can go, I'm sure he has a TED Talk. I've watched him on YouTube quite a bit. There's even a profile that you can use. It's becoming a more popular topic that I work with, even though it's very soft and can spook some of the analytical people. Your success is so dependent upon your ability to be relatable and to build great relationships. And that's what emotional IQ is about. So go to YouTube, meet him, meet others, go to TED Talks, same thing. I'm kind of a white paper person sometimes at first, more than I am a book. And I'm in my office, but I can't see all my books. I'm pretty sure I have one by Goldman. Email me, and if I do, I'll tell you the name of it.
Okay. And can you repeat the name of the book by James Clears?
I sure can, and it's Clear, James Clear, Clear. You'll want to follow him. He's a fabulous blogger, and that's how he wrote this book. It's called Atomic Habits. And he says on the cover, an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones. I have a coaching practice with about 15 people I coach every month on the phone. With rare exception, they've read it, and it's a part of our conversations routinely. Very thought-provoking. I'm excited that you are interested in reading it, but follow his blogs. I have an app called Pocket, Pocket, and based on what I dig around that I'm interested in, then Pocket throws things into my inbox that predictably I would most want to read. And that's another way James Clear is going to, and people like him and Daniel Goldman are going to show up for you. So check out Pocket.
Okay, and that is all I have. You can go ahead with your wrap up for today.
Okay, great. Well, Jared, it's always fun to get to do this. This is the most convenient way for us to get a chance to have a thought-provoking conversation that could net some learning. So I love that I get to do webinars with you and your firm. I want to thank everybody who tuned in. I would love it if you would email me if you have questions or feedback for me or a topic that you think you wish I would present on in a webinar. Had a great time today. I look forward to the next time. Back to you, Jared.
Okay, thanks so much, Honey. Before we sign off, just a few quick announcements for today. So first, today's webinar was recorded. Everyone who attended the live webinar will have access to the on-demand recording for 5 business days. Look for an email within 24 hours with information on how to access the recording. If you'd like to upgrade that access to 6 months or add the CD-ROM, please contact us so we can get that added to your order. Second, there is a certificate of attendance available on our website at bankwebinars.com, and it will be available when the recording is posted. Just log in with your email address and go to the My Webinars tab, and you should be able to print out a certificate for today's attendance. And third, there's a list of our upcoming programs on the right side of the screen here. You can find more information about all of these again on our website, bankwebinars.com. Okay, thank you so much, Honey, for this wonderful presentation, and thank you everyone for attending.
My pleasure.
Thank you for viewing this webinar, produced for you by TTS and bankwebinars.com. If you have any questions or comments about this presentation, please visit us at www.ttstrain.com for contact information. We hope to talk to you again soon.